It was the fall of 2020. The world had gone mad, and I needed to escape. No one was going anywhere. The country was in lockdown, but I had to be alone, to breathe, to think. So, I packed my things, ignored the warnings, and drove to a remote forest in northern Michigan, a place far away where I could lose myself in the trees. I parked my truck at the trailhead, stepped out into the crisp, cool air, and felt the weight of the silence hit me. No voices, no traffic, just the deep, eerie quiet of the wilderness. The forest stretched out before me, dark, endless. I had hiked this trail before. It was always peaceful, always empty. No one for miles. Perfect. I walked for hours, deeper and deeper into the woods. Dry leaves crunched beneath my boots. The scent of pine was thick in the air, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace, away from the chaos, away from everything. Eventually, I reached a small clearing by a creek. It seemed like a good place to stop. I set up my tent, chopped some wood, built a fire. The flames flickered, their warmth fighting against the cold night creeping in. I sat down, staring into the fire. Darkness fell fast, and with it came a strange feeling, like something was waiting. I tried to ignore it, tried to enjoy the quiet I had come here for. And then, snap, a twig, breaking. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I turned. My eyes scanned the tree line, my heart hammering in my chest. The fire crackled. But beyond that, nothing. I told myself it was just an animal. A deer. Maybe. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I took a deep breath and tried to push the thought away, focused on the warmth of the fire. I lit a cigarette, tried to calm my nerves, but my eyes kept drifting to the trees, and then, snap. Another sound. Rustling. Closer this time. My pulse quickened. The hairs on my neck stood up. I grabbed my flashlight, stood up, and aimed it toward the sound. My heart pounded. I knew something was out there. I just couldn't see it. The beam of light cut through the darkness. Nothing, just trees, just shadows. I swallowed hard, my body tense. The silence was deafening, and yet, I felt it. Eyes on me, watching. I reached for my bag, my fingers brushing against the cold metal of my handgun. It made me feel safer, but I knew it was false comfort. Because, what if it wasn't a person? What if it was something worse? I exhaled shakily, crawled into my tent, zipped the door shut, and sat there, listening, waiting. Then, my phone buzzed. I stiffened. No one should be calling me. No one even knew I was out here. Slowly, I pulled the phone from my pocket. A text from an unknown number. "It's beautiful out here, isn't it?" My breath hitched. My hands started to shake. The area code, Connecticut. I didn't know anyone from Connecticut. I swallowed, my fingers trembling as I typed, "Who is this?" The response came instantly. "I see you." My blood ran cold. This wasn't paranoia. I wasn't alone. Someone was here. Someone had been watching me. I gripped my phone tighter, forcing myself to breathe. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe someone from the hiking group I joined last year had my number. Maybe. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. My stomach twisted. I grabbed my flashlight again, unzipped the tent just enough to poke my head out. The forest beyond my campfire was pitch black. I scanned the trees, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Nothing. But I felt it. The stare. That unbearable, unseen presence. Then, footsteps. Soft at first, but growing louder. Deliberate, slow, leaves crunching. Someone was walking toward me. I held my breath. The flashlight shook in my hands. And then, a figure, emerging from the darkness. Tall, motionless, shrouded in shadows. I couldn't see his face, but I could feel his eyes, studying me, watching. He didn't speak, didn't move closer. He just stood there, staring. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I was frozen. Then, slowly, he turned and walked away, vanishing into the trees, like he had never been there at all. My heart slammed against my ribs. What if he was still watching? What if there were more of them? Snap. Another sound. Distant, but real. I didn't wait. I grabbed my things, shoved everything into my bag, didn't even bother with the tent. I ran. The forest closed in around me. My breath came in short, panicked gasps. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I had to get back to my truck. When I finally reached the trailhead, I turned. One last time. And there, in the trees, I saw him, standing in the darkness, watching me. I didn't stay to find out more. I threw myself into my truck, locked the doors, and tore out of there, leaving that forest behind. I haven't been back since. But sometimes, I still get texts from that same unknown number. No words, just a picture of me, taken when I least expect it. A reminder that whatever was out there is still watching. I never should have come here. It started as a simple idea, camping in Blackwood Forest. Just me and my friend Eric. A quiet escape from the relentless noise of the city. No phones, no distractions. Just the two of us, a tent, and the vast whispering woods. But from the moment we arrived, something felt off. The air was thick, heavy with an unnatural stillness. No chirping crickets, no rustling leaves, just the wind, sighing through the trees like a warning. Eric didn't seem to notice. He busied himself with the fire, humming some tune under his breath, completely at ease. But me? I felt watched, not just the usual discomfort of being in the dark. This was something deeper, primal, instinctual. At first, it was subtle, a twig snapping behind us when neither of us moved. A fleeting shadow at the edge of the fire's glow. A whisper, too faint to be real, carried by the wind. Then, the whispers intensified. Software indistinct, just beyond the trees. A voice. No, multiple voices, layered, murmuring in a language I couldn't understand. I turned to Eric. "Did you hear that?" He shook his head, grinning. "You're just spooking yourself, man." Maybe he was right, but then something heavy hit the ground near our tent. We both jumped. Eric grabbed the flashlight, sweeping its beam across the trees. Nothing. Just the wind through the branches. Then I saw them. Footprints. Fresh. Leading toward our camp, but none leading away. A chill crawled up my spine. "Eric, we need to go." He laughed, shaking his head. "Dude, it's probably an animal." But I wasn't convinced. The prints were deep, human, barefoot, and the way they appeared, like someone had been standing there just watching us. I grabbed my bag, ready to leave when, "Stay!" I spun around, nothing. But Eric? He was frozen, his face pale. "You heard that?" I whispered. He nodded, slowly. Then the fire died. Darkness swallowed us whole. My breath hitched, hands trembling. I fumbled for the flashlight, clicked it on. A man. No, not a man. Something wrong. Skin too pale, stretched taut. A grin too wide, lips curling unnaturally, and its eyes, black, hollow, unblinking. Eric screamed. I seized his arm and we ran, crashing through the undergrowth, branches clawing at my face. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Then, silence. We reached the car, scrambling inside. I jammed the keys into the ignition, my fingers shaking. The tires spun, flinging dirt, and we tore down the path, away from the trees, away from whatever had been out there. We didn't speak. Not until we hit the main road, where the trees thinned and the air felt lighter. I dared to glance at Eric. He sat motionless, his hands trembling. "You saw it too," I murmured. He nodded. "Yeah." Then he lifted his hand, revealing something clutched between his fingers. A piece of fabric. Dark, torn, damp. It wasn't his. We never went back, never spoke of it again. But some nights, when the wind is just right, I swear, I still hear it. Stay. It's midnight, and the only light comes from the faint glow of the campfire. The air is crisp, and the fire's warmth feels like a blessing in the vast, cold emptiness of the forest. I sit with my two best friends, Jake and Mike, around the fire, the three of us sharing stories from the past, laughing as the flames dance in front of us. But something about tonight feels different. The usual sounds of the forest, crickets, rustling leaves, the occasional owl, are completely absent. I keep glancing over my shoulder, half expecting something to move just beyond the trees, but the darkness is still. Too still. We've been here for hours, deep in the woods, far from any trails or campsites. Jake found this place a few months ago, a hidden spot that he swore would be perfect for a weekend getaway. I wasn't so sure about it at first, but it seemed harmless. Still tonight, there's an odd tension in the air. Even Jake, the one who normally doesn't get spooked by anything, is staring off into the trees, his face pale in the firelight. "You guys feel that?" he asks suddenly, his voice low. Mike looks over at him, his brow furrowed. "Feel what?" Mike asks, half laughing as if Jake's overthinking things. "Like we're being watched," Jake says, his voice tight. "Like there's something out there just waiting." Mike laughs, but I can't help but feel a little uneasy. It's the way Jake's eyes dart around, like he's trying to pick out shapes in the darkness. I look over my shoulder again, but all I see is the vast blackness beyond the firelight. Nothing moves. "Come on, man. We've been out here for hours," I say, trying to brush it off. "It's probably just the trees creaking in the wind or something." But Mike stops laughing. His face changes, turning serious as he looks around the firelight. "Yeah," he says slowly. "But I've been hearing something. Footsteps, not in the woods, but around the camp." My heart skips a beat. I've heard it too, but I thought it was just my imagination. The sound of footsteps, too steady to be a random animal. It's been there, just outside the firelight, moving around us. I stand up quickly, my mind racing. "Guys, this is stupid. It's probably just an animal." I grab the flashlight from my bag and scan the trees, but all I can see is thick darkness. I move a little farther out, my feet crunching on the dry leaves. The silence is overwhelming. I stop. Something's wrong. It's too quiet now. Not a single sound from the trees. Not a breath of wind. I shine the light around, looking for anything that might explain the feeling of being watched. But all I see is the black void of the woods stretching out in every direction. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I see it. A figure. Just beyond the trees, barely visible in the shadows, something stands still, watching us. It's tall, its shape too vague to make out, but its eyes, two bright white pinpricks, stare directly at me. I freeze. My breath catches in my throat. The figure doesn't move. It just stands there, as still as the trees, watching. I turn back toward Jake and Mike, but they haven't noticed. They're still sitting by the fire, talking quietly among themselves, oblivious to the danger creeping in from the edge of the darkness. I turn back to the figure. It's gone. Jake, Mike, I whisper urgently, we need to leave. Now. They look at me, confused. What are you talking about? Mike asks. But then, I hear it. A rustle from behind them. The figure is there again, closer now. It's no longer standing still. It's moving, slowly, deliberately, like it's closing in. I grab the flashlight and shine it toward the sound, but the light falls on empty space. The figure's not where it was. It's closer. Too close. The world around me goes cold. Run! I shout, grabbing Jake by the arm. Mike jumps to his feet, eyes wide in confusion, but the panic in my voice is enough to make him react. We grab our things and start running, but the footsteps follow us. Close behind. Too close. I glance over my shoulder, heart racing, but I see nothing. Nothing but the same empty darkness. We don't stop running until we make it back to the car. Panting and terrified, we don't speak as I start the engine, throwing the car into gear. I drive quickly, eyes on the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that figure standing by the road. But there's nothing. After what feels like forever, we finally reach the main road, far away from the woods. I pull over to the side, still breathing heavily. Jake and Mike stare out of the window, both of them silently processing what just happened. Did we just imagine that? Mike asks, his voice shaking. Did we see the same thing? Jake nods, but his face is pale. I don't know. But whatever it wasn't just in our heads. I stay quiet. I don't want to speak it aloud, but I can't stop thinking about those eyes, glowing white in the dark, and the way it followed us. We never went back to that campsite, and the woods, those woods, are something we'll never speak of again. I never should have agreed to this trip. The forest loomed over us, dark, endless, and wrong. The campsite was eerily silent, except for the occasional rustling of leaves, like something unseen shifting through the trees. Relax, man, Tyler said, grinning as he tossed another log into the fire. The flames crackled, casting long, flickering shadows against the tent walls. I forced a chuckle, but my gut clenched. I had that feeling, the one you get when someone's watching you. Blake and Jesse were joking about ghost stories, trying to scare each other, but their voices sounded distant, almost muffled by the dense, heavy air pressing down on us. Then, I heard it, a whisper, soft, breathy, just behind me. I spun around, nothing, just the trees, swaying slightly in the wind. I swallowed hard and turned back to the fire. Did you guys hear that? Blake raised an eyebrow. Hear what? That whisper? They exchanged glances. You good, man? Jesse asked, smirking. Or did you already start losing it? I shook my head, forcing a grin. Yeah, probably nothing. But it wasn't nothing. As the night stretched on, the fire dimmed, and an eerie stillness settled over the campsite. Even the crickets had gone silent. Then came the footsteps, slow, deliberate, just outside the glow of the fire. Okay, you heard that, right? My voice cracked. This time they did. Blake shot up. Who's out there? Silence. The air felt wrong, thick, suffocating. Then, a twig snapped. We all turned, eyes scanning the darkness. Jesse grabbed a flashlight and pointed it toward the trees. The beam trembled slightly as he swept it across the underbrush. Nothing. But then, the shadows shifted. No wind, no movement from us. But something shifted. The shape of the darkness changed. Tyler cursed under his breath. Screw this. He grabbed a stick from the fire, the embers glowing red hot at the tip. If someone's messing with us... He never finished his sentence, because the whisper came again. Only this time, it was right in our ears. Not alone. The voice was raspy, hollow, too close. The flashlight flickered. The trees seemed to close in. And then, the fire went out. A sound erupted from the darkness, a deep, guttural growl. I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe. Then, Jesse screamed. The flashlight hit the ground, rolling. In its faint beam, I saw movement. A figure. No, figures. Tall, twisted, eyes like burning embers staring right at us. Something yanked Jesse into the shadows. His scream cut off. "Run!" Blake's voice cracked. I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted. Branches whipped against my face as I tore through the trees. I didn't know if the others were behind me. I just ran. The whispers followed. A chorus of them now. Not alone. Not alone. Not alone. My lungs burned. My legs ached, but I didn't stop. Then, light. A clearing. The car. I threw myself at the door, fumbling with the handle. Tyler was behind me, panting. Blake stumbled out of the woods, his face pale. Jesse didn't. The whispers were louder now, closer. I turned the key. The engine roared to life, and in the rearview mirror, I saw them, tall, wrong, grinning, watching, and Jesse standing among them, expressionless, unmoving. His lips parted, and in that same breathy, hollow voice he whispered, "Not alone." We never went back, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear the whispers, and I know they're waiting,